Well, hello, everybody. It's been a year, actually a little over a year, that me and Virginia Drake and Justin Deschamps got on video chat together. We've all done quite a bit of work together, and we've known each other. I've known Virginia since 2008. And Justin came into our life about 2010, so it's been quite a journey as friends together. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the subject of love, and I'm not going to give too much of an intro to this, as we want to break that down and what that looks like in our current world, and how you can use that power of love, self-love, to empower yourself. So I'm not going to explain it. We're going to let all three of us kind of talk about it and explain it. How are you guys doing today? Justin?
Hello, it's good. It's good to see all three of us together again.
Yeah, certainly. Great to be here and sharing space with all of you.
Right.
So I've, just so you know, just a little joke. I told them all it was cold in Florida, and they kind of looked at me at the video like I was crazy, because Virginia's in Kentucky, and as you all know, Justin's in New England. And so, yeah, but I still think it's cold down here. I don't know what to talk about.
Convince me on that.
So I think the biggest thing, we started this as a conversation because Justin and I were talking, and then Virginia and I have talked on many occasions. The other day I posted something about love, and I said it's time for love, peace, and truth. And somebody really took the way they said it. It's like I have to be grounded in this world, and I have a lot of my soul cries for this earth and feels pain for this earth, and I think that even in love we can feel pain, because then we have to love the pain so we can heal the pain. You have to go through all that and experience it. So I think that oftentimes we try to avoid the pain, and not, even though pain is, pay attention in more now, not run away now. Pay attention in more now and actually get into it. So what are you guys' thoughts on love and how people see it these days?
Well, I know for me, it's gotten deeper and deeper since I've gotten older and older. And it's not about my children. It's not about my hometown and the people I'm with. It's about me. And for instance, I had to really go deep inside myself this morning and feel that I thought I'd hurt someone. But who I really hurt was me. And when people understand what you're putting out is really going to come back to you, and it's something that you need to look, and we have mirrors all around us. That's part of the love too, is really looking at all the mirrors around you, the good mirrors, the bad mirrors, whatever, because it's giving you insight to who you really are within. And that's totally different than an image or who you think you are on the outside, because that doesn't even equate when you're within. That to me is self-love. That's loving within, beyond measure. There's no measure of that. So that's love for me.
Yeah. And I think to echo that, love is, first let me say that love is a term that we use so much in our daily lives, and we hear so much about in society that it has a million different meanings. So
it's used too much almost.
Yeah.
We have overused it because now you don't trust the word.
Well, right. I mean, you could say that you love, a certain food that you like, or you also love
I love my car.
You love your car, you love the way something makes you feel, you love whatever. There's so many different things that word can be used for, but if you look at the context of how that word is being used, each time you use it, or we tend to use it anyway, the meaning changes. So I think that the general meaning that we can glean from what love is in all of these various usages is that it usually means receptiveness. So when you love something, it's kind of like a declaration to yourself saying, this is something I accept, that I want.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then to flip the other side of that, to kind of have an apophatic definition of love, well, the opposite of love would be fear in that sense. So when you fear something, you're rejecting it. You're saying, no, I don't want this. I can't look at this. I don't want to be around this, and you kind of try to run away. So I think that's probably a good umbrella to put over what love is, and to get a little more focused and add a little more specificity. I think love can mean receptiveness to yourself, receptiveness to the truth. I think I put out an article today about forgiveness and Ho'oponopono, and I think one of the biggest things that we need to realize, or that would be helpful to realize about love, is that in that big sense of receptiveness, it means being open to receive the truth in fullness. That doesn't mean that you also want to perpetuate whatever it is that you're seeing. So, for example, I made this statement about how we need to be able to accept or love some of these horrible things in our world, like tyranny and slavery and oppression and all this. And somebody responded that I shouldn't put that in there because it's basically implying that we should desire them or want to propagate them. And that's not what I'm saying at all.
Not at all. Not at all.
What I'm saying is that we need to be receptive to the fullness of the truth. We need to face reality and be open and receptive to that so we can empower ourselves to do something about it. So,
yeah.
Now, when the word you're using in receptive, I use the word allow. So receptive and allow are the same thing, but it's sometimes you've got to allow those dark areas to come in so you can understand the two polarities of them. But let's go back to one thing, and this is from somebody that's had many near-death experiences. We don't die.
Mm.
So when you understand we don't die, these are experiences. We don't know why people are experiencing tyranny. We don't know why they're experiencing, murder. We don't know. What we do know on a soul level, and this is the fact, you don't die.
Right.
To experience, and what we're here to experience is not those things, but to love ourselves first unconditionally. And people don't know what that means. Unconditionally was without any boundaries.
Right.
And people are usually in resistance of no boundaries because that's their control issues, is to boundary.
Well, I think that when we're talking about that, we have to, it's like what you guys are both saying is about, being unlimited and no boundaries. And Justin, you were talking about loving even the things that we don't want to see in this world. And I was doing a radio show the other day with, about a week ago with Rashmi. And one of the things that she said that I thought was really interesting is that she said, we were talking about the presidential election. She said, Donald Trump is just a reflection of the American consciousness.
Absolutely.
And she says everything that they're angry at him about, and she goes, this is going to piss Americans off. They're going to say, well, I'm not a rapist, and I didn't do these things, and I'm not a racist, and all those things. And so the challenge is have you ever said anything hateful about somebody or racist? And if you say that you didn't, you're a liar.
And I agree with that right there. I know that's true.
So it's interesting too, because I was at breakfast this morning with our friend Justin Duncan, and his friend Rob had said, Justin had said to him the other day, he had said, well, it's a lot easier to gossip about somebody or talk badly about somebody than it is to just say nice something or not say anything negative at all. And what I got from that is that all of us have gossiped before. All of us have talked badly about somebody. And so love would say, I've done it. And love would say, hey, looking at yourself and saying, I did that. I love myself for the mistake. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to gain something from it. And hey, you know what? It's not about being perfect or not perfect. It's about, this is an experience down here. And so we often hear the Christians say, well, it's because we're human and we're not perfect. No, that's not what it means at all. You actually are perfect, even in the instances that we deem and want to judge. So the judgment says, no, I don't want tyranny because that oppresses other people. Except all three of us have talked about over the last week is that even sometimes tyranny is a catalyst to push consciousness into another direction. And the reason why people are saying don't say that is because they don't want to face the fact that they've been a tyrant themselves, maybe on a micro level, but even in their own house, or if they're a manager at their job, if they've done something in their life that makes them not want to look at this guy and say, I created that on a conscious level, not on maybe a voting level, but on a subconscious level. Somehow our consciousness created this situation. And it's a mirror back to us. That's what we're not looking at.
I was talking to some women. I went to a men's or women's bar where men strippers were there, and I thought the women behaved worse than the men ever behaved. I was like shocked. And they kept saying they were giving me dollars to put it down in his, and I was like, oh, and I thought, what is this? This is worse than. And I turned around to the women. I said, if a man acted like that to you, you would be offended. I mean, they were grabbing his cheeks. And I thought, what's the matter with you all? You wouldn't want anybody to do that to you. And it was so reversal, and I never experienced that. Now, I was in my 40s when that happened, and I remember going home and thinking, a man now understands what it's like this is what they're all talking about, in a sense, is the sexism and all that. Well, I'm going to tell you something. We've all been sexist. There's been many a time a man walked in front of me and he had great bottom. And the women would make a comment about it. No more than if they were walking in front of a girl. Now, we weren't whistling. But that's just as bad as what, Trump was talking about now, grabbing the girl on the crotch. Now, I'm telling you, I don't know if that would have been me. I don't know if he would have gotten away with that. But he lives in a different world than we do, folks. That's where another thing. He's also mirroring the rich and the famous. And if you go read the tabloids, they are sending that energy out. Now, if you got upset about it, you also are feeling that energy inside. And that's what people don't understand. He's just a mirror. How many times have you gone in and called somebody a bad name or said something about them or give the finger to somebody? We've all done it.
Certainly, yeah. Let he who has not cast the first sin, or let he who has not sinned cast the first stone, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's just the biggest mirror that and you know what I liked about him? At least he was honest. At least he was saying out loud. All those others, they've been so groomed and so, prettied up that they would never say that because that's just not kosher. Well, I'm ready for the unkosher, and let's get down to the real life of living, and that comes out of people's mouths as much as it comes out love. We need to look at, America is really having to look at herself, and that's exactly what this is about. We're all going to have to look. Some people are not happy about
that's programmed in people, though, to not tell the truth. It's I just had a situation the other day where I had said something to an employee, and I didn't really think it was that big of a deal. I basically told her something that a supervisor had said about her, but in a public place to several employees and supervisors. So she had brought up that the supervisor's been targeting her, and I said, yeah, there's something that she said, and what's that all about? Well, it became a huge issue, because I shouldn't have said that because I'm part of leadership. And I was even told by my boss, sometimes, we just have to, it's just wiser to not say anything at all. Like if your wife says to you, is this dress pretty? You shouldn't tell it. You should just say, oh yes, honey, it's pretty. And I just kind of looked at her and I thought, I would tell her that the dress looked horrible. I might say to her, something like, well, honey, I don't think that.
But I would rather have your response as a person that's been in a relationship for 30 years. This is what builds trust, is that if you're with somebody, and this is just with friends, lovers, husbands, wives, whatever, if you don't have that trust within that relationship, you have nothing. I much rather that they would not lie to me, because I was lied to, and it really does destroy everything if you don't trust the person you're with, or trust whoever you are in. Not necessarily a relationship, because we're all in relationships with people. If you have a good friend, that's a relationship.
Oh yeah,
right. And that's where they also make really strange things, is that they don't realize what relationships are. In relationships, you have to work at them. It's a job. If you really love that relationship and that person, you will love to make sure that you're honest with them, because honesty and love are they come together. And I think that's when I really lost faith in people, when they didn't tell me the truth. I much rather you tell me the truth. I don't care how bad it is. I much rather somebody say, you're a bitch. I would get that. But if you're really, and when they're being condescending, if they're giving you something that it's not given with love. I don't want anything given anymore if it's not given with love or, appreciation. If it's given out of obligation, I don't want it. It's not the same. When you're obligated to give somebody something, I don't want it. And I like that. That's what I understand. I'd use.
Well, it's not really giving it. If you don't have that space to truly give, which requires the freedom of will to do so, then it's an entitlement, which means there's an expectation. There's basically you're in some kind of a prisoner hostage relationship where if you don't do this, now certain privileges are going to be removed from the situation. So
absolutely, codependency.
Yeah,
That's
right,
the biggest sickness, and then you're attached to the person that you say you love.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're afraid of them. You don't want to disappoint them. Look at everything that we've been trained and programmed about love is. I mean, love to me is, I used to have a store full of gifts, so I knew everything about my coworkers, that I knew the kind of gift they'd want. Now, I spent more time on finding the gift for them, and it's because, I wish I would have said it was because I loved them. It was because I wanted respect from them.
Right.
And they knew that I had taken.
It was more of a bribe than an honest and earnest sharing of something that you felt like would be empowering for them or whatnot.
Yes, true, but it also, they didn't know I was listening. That's what my family used to say. You really listen, and because I would work all year long to get everybody what they wanted.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I was the big girl, look what she gave me. And it had nothing to do with love. It was all about my ego and the brushing of, look what I've done. See how much I loved you, I cared enough. And I didn't. I was the game. It was the hunt to find that peace.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish you could see, I don't know if you're seeing this, Justin. You've got a beam of light from your light in the back, and it's coming right down through your body.
Oh, right.
It's a beam of light. And I'm thinking, wow, that is really intense.
Oh, yeah, I see it. Yep.
Yeah, it's intense. It's going right into your heart.
Do you know, I saw this this posting today on, I think it was on YouTube, on a comment thread about, so this person was talking about a relationship and stuff, and I thought it was one girl, she said, he's always looking for that love, that spark in love. And she goes, what I realized one day is I always look for that spark myself, and so until one day I got annoyed with my friend that I've been hanging out with for a long while, and I realized after I got annoyed that how much I loved him. And she goes, but it wasn't that the annoyance told me that I was in love with him. It was the fact that love is about hard work. Yeah. And it's about right there in that moment I had a choice. I could be annoyed, and the truth is he was just being himself. Or I could love him for being himself, and being so honest, and being so out there as far as being his personality and not being fake with me. And that was the moment I fell in love with him, because, and then, you know what, and I still get annoyed with him on occasion, but that's because the one you love challenges you.
Right.
Well, I'm going to tell you, your microphone, Jeremy, is going out. It's like, maybe
Is it? I'm not hearing that.
Okay,
Oh.
I did. I was hearing it.
Yeah, maybe it's the internet now. Okay.
So yeah, that just told me something about love, and it's like, and I remember Justin and when we lived together, there was times when we got annoyed with each other, and I remember you and Julian would have interesting conversations. Let's put it that way, and even on the radio shows and stuff like that. And you two truly loved each other, but you challenged each other too.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one time when you guys were having one of those discussions, and I walked into my room and I said, "I can't take all this. Shut the hell up." and so the truth is like, we say that if you love somebody, you would never want to say anything hurtful to them. And yeah, I guess that's true in a sense, except that when you love somebody, they always say also the people that you love is the ones who treat the worst sometimes. And I think that necessarily that's probably out of balance too. Except that the people you love do help you see things in yourself. So if you're getting annoyed, then there's something that they're reflecting back to you. And hey, what a safer place to do it than with somebody you love. They're reflecting back something to you that is pissing you off or annoying you. And hey, they're not going to like beat you up for having that emotion, that you can have the opportunity now to say, hey, wait a second, why am I getting annoyed? And you get to really take a look at that. So
that's the opportunity. That's where you learn. That's when you become a big grown up, is when you take it as an opportunity and not pointing a finger.
Yeah.
It's about being accountable for your own actions, because that's what it's all about, is really being honest with yourself. It doesn't matter what anybody responds or how they respond. That's what happened in our meeting. I mean, there was a conflict of the other lady and I that's been going on for about a good 6 or 7 months. And finally, it came to a head amongst everybody. And I looked at her and I said, it's not your words. It's the energy you're shooting at everybody makes us feel very uncomfortable. And I said, I'm a sensitive. It goes right through me, straight to my heart. And I've already had heart attacks. I don't need that kind of friction. She said, I had no idea. I said, your face is scary when you get mad. And everybody said, it's scary. People were talking openly and honestly. And she said, I'm so glad you all told me. I did not know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at Justin, you remember the workshop we had at your house, and Julian and I got into a fight, into an argument, and but I never loved that kid more than after that. Every time we'd have a discussion, I just loved him even more. And and of course, we were a lot alike, he and I, in some ways, because we had a lot of emotions, stuff like that. So, but it's not about what it's about. Open and honesty is like you're talking about your group. So. Yeah.
Well, Julian, what I loved about Julian is he had the courage to tell the real truth. Nobody in any group I've ever been in said what he said.
Yeah.
Nobody. He said that he had molested a child, and I remember I've never, because I mean that was a risk in itself, folks. Because if you had somebody in there and he, and when he and I worked through it, I said, Julian, when you call this person to say something, I said, you're taking a risk. You could end up going, and it could, but it didn't.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Remember that? That was a big aha moment for him. He looked at me and cried. I held him in tears. He took me, he had to pick me up, and he pulled off, and he said, am I going to get through this? I said, you're going to get through this. I said,
well, yeah, because he was a child himself when it happened.
Yes.
He was
right.
a kid.
And it's not even so much that, just to clarify the situation, it's not like he was an adult and he took advantage of somebody. It was a situation where two younger people were exploring their sexuality, as children often do, even though it's, people kind of turn a blind eye and they hear about it like, oh my God, this is horrible. But people have been doing this for all of humanity.
Yes.
But he felt like he had taken advantage of this person, and he was carrying this guilt around with him, even though, it was a perfectly innocent type of situation, in my opinion. So
yeah, it was. And then
allowing him a space to actually bare his soul and share that. And I think that's one of the powerful things about true, unselfish, unconditional love is that you're willing to love and accept somebody no matter what they do, even if they're doing really horrible things, because behind all the stuff they do, there's still that person, there's still that essence, that awareness that is behind everybody's eyes, and that's that common thread that unites us all. So let's expound on that a little bit too, because in his case it was very innocent, and he carried the guilt. It was the guilt that hurt him, right?
And that's what he confessed. And what he did, that person was like, oh, what? And they were like, that's nothing to be forgiven about. And they told, I can't remember the exact words. And then, but let's go for a step further, like into like things like Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton or something like that. Well, whatever side do you want to be angry at? We have to love them too, by the way. And what if they threw themselves down and said, I've got to confess. I've got to say all these things.
I'd love it. I wish they would.
And it's not a confession for us, because their confession has nothing to do with us. It has to do with them and what healing it would be for their soul. So would we be angry with them, or would we love them? So
I'd love them. I would love them for doing. That's why I love Julian, because he said something, but what it was eating him up. When he went to that kid had forgotten it. But it was eating Julian up. And when Julian loved himself enough to speak the truth, and he allowed it first with our group. Remember that? I mean, that was awesome. Nobody responded but in love. Same thing when we did Catherine. Nobody responded anything but with love. There was no resistance. Everybody was loving.
And that doesn't happen in a lot of groups. A lot of times you get a lot of judgment. I was part of a group, and people would open up, and then people would try to console them, but it was like a sympathy type of consoling. It wasn't a holding space type of thing. And so holding space is a lot different. It's like, we're all three right here, and I can feel your heart energy and stuff. So it's that kind of space is love. And so love is like the Greeks say, agape love, unconditional love. And so agape love, if we really want to take a look at it, is even loving the darkness in us. So all those things, hey, by the way, all you people that are listening or watching this, you have something in you that is so deep and dark that you may not even be aware of it. Most of you are aware of it, but you are ashamed of it. You try to hide it. And some of you might be sitting there and saying, no, I don't. I don't know what he's talking about. He's crazy, all that kind of stuff. But here's the truth. You look in the mirror, I'm sure, and you try to cover yourself and say, oh, I've gained too much weight. I bet you take pictures and look at the picture and selfies and say, oh, I can't post that one. I don't like the lighting, the way it looks on my face. And so you do something that you're trying to hide. That's called the shadow. And why not put that picture up that you don't like of yourself? Why not put that that picture up? Because you have to look at it every time you sign up on your Facebook, and you have to share it with whoever's in your network. And so, 9 times out of 10, it's really funny. The people who say, "Oh, I don't like that," other people think it's great. And so Justin and Julian were very healing for me in a sense, because they started recording me speaking many years ago, and they recorded me and Virginia speaking. You can see that on my YouTube channel called Virginia Drink Workshop, or Virginia Workshop, or something like that. But what that did for me is I had been a trainer for years, and people had recorded me speaking, and I really didn't like watching myself speak. And I was like, everybody said I was a great speaker, but I was like, I'm kind of not that great. Until I saw myself in that workshop, 6 years ago, almost 7 years ago, and I looked at it and I said, wow, I'm really good. And poor Justin was editing, and he had to hear me say, I'm down with the Pirates of the Caribbean like 200 times as he was trying to edit the film. And, that kind of I think it kind of took over the movie watching instead of, the stuff. But as you can see, he's smiling right now because the camera's on him. So, but I don't know. It's just something to really think about, those things that you don't want to look at yourself, and everything that you judge in yourself, start with yourself instead of other people. I can tell you, when you stop judging yourself, the judgment of other people will start lessening. So. And
that is the truth. Same thing about my children. I have told them over and over that I love them. And but I had done so many false loves, and like one of my oldest sons said to me, you're an Indian giver, and I was just horrified. Well, I do understand what he meant by that. From his perspective, he messed up. I would take something away, and I see where I made a lot of mistakes, but also I see where these were opportunities for all of us as my family around me to, when I really woke up, we had an opportunity to love unconditionally. But my family was so scared of what was going on, they couldn't control me anymore. And they were calling it love. So, and we have to look at that, because love is really unconditional. There's no judgment. Now, I notice a lot of my students, they get confused about observational and judgmental. And they asked me, they said, well, aren't you judging somebody when you're observing? When you're observing somebody's behavior and you're looking within yourself, is that, I am that I am? It makes you go deeper and say, where is that in me? I always, if I'm upset or somebody triggers me, where is that in me? Mm-hmm. And that just brings my love back to me, because I'm very happy to go there, because I know it's going to give me more insight. So I'm not upset about what anybody says to me anymore, or how they're reflecting it, because I know this is about me anyway. This whole experience is about me. Just like I've made you and Jeremy a part of my experience. I made Julian a part of my experience. And I'm glad. I'm glad what's going on in the world now. We needed this opportunity for us to bring up the shit, literally, so people can see what they've been living under. If you don't even know you're swimming in shit, you're not going to think anything about it. You'll think you're on a damn beach. That's what this mind control thinks everybody's, they're in. Americans need to wake up.
Mm-hmm. We all need to wake up, for sure.
Yes. And it does affect everybody. One thought affects everybody.
Yeah, I wanted to mention some kind of science about acceptance and unconditional love and sharing. There's a researcher, Dan Winter, I've mentioned several times, and he's got this device called the heart tuner. And what he did is he hooked it up to people, and essentially what it is it's an EKG, so an echocardiogram that measures the heart and electromagnetic waves of the heart, and then it's an electroencephalogram that measures the brain waves. Mm-hmm. What he noticed was that when people and he'd actually just hook them up to it and then, ask them questions, kind of monitor how the coherence between the mind and the heart would actually work. And when people were in a really coherent place, they didn't feel the need to feel secrecy or out of balance, or they maybe felt bliss. So one thing that he said that I thought was really profound is that, you should try to make things shareable, which is another way of saying you should try not to keep and hold secrets or hide things from yourself. So to think about that for a minute, what happened when somebody was thinking about something that they didn't accept about themselves or they were trying to keep secret, is it created this dissonance or this disharmony between the mind and the heart. So a lot of people here that have probably heard that the heart can't keep secrets, or it's completely open and kind of omniscient, and it receives all and has intuitive powers that the mind doesn't have. Right. And in a sense, that's true. So if you're exposed to a stimulus, let's say somebody puts a mirror in front of you, and you think you don't look good or you're overweight, and you're trying to hide that from yourself, well, your heart's going to be radiating the truth. It can't help but radiate the full truth. That's right. But your mind is going to be blocked by these secrets, like, oh, well, I can't see myself, I don't accept myself. So what that's going to do is it's literally going to create a dissonance pattern.
And that's what depression is about.
Right. So then when you actually find the courage to accept the fullness of truth, which is a mindal thing, your consciousness operates at the top, your actual conscious mind operates and I'm pointing at the head, not to necessarily to say that your consciousness is in your brain, but use these symbols and allegories. When you actually invoke the consciousness to say, I accept this about myself, I forgive myself for not accepting myself for who I am. And then when you actually go through the act of sharing that truth with somebody else, it realigns the heart and the mind. And now there's an extreme coherence. And that's why, to go back to Julian, I think this is why it was so powerful for him, and this is why it's so powerful for anybody. Anybody who's holding on to something that they feel like they can't share, that they have to keep secret, because if they let the world see this, then, oh my God, they'll be such horrible people.
Yeah, they'll feel judged.
They feel judged. I mean, speaking for myself, I was an addict for 4 years. I was in the closet for most of my life, and I can tell you that in those instances where I felt like somebody might know who I really was, oh my God, I'd be paralyzed with fear. But now, when I actually take the time, or in the beginning especially, when I actually shared that secret, it was like this incredible relief. It was like a mini Kundalini experience. Like finally this energy that had been building up in my heart for a lifetime was finally allowed to come through all of my energy centers and escape through my crown chakra. And then I was having this like total unified holistic bliss experience. When you actually take the time to share and be authentic, especially with somebody else, when you're given that opportunity to really reveal who you truly are in fullness, I mean, it's incredibly healing for you, and it lets the other person subconsciously know, you know what? You can be vulnerable too. It's okay.
And vulnerability is a good thing.
Yeah.
Be vulnerable. I mean, there's a whole science on vulnerability.
And I want to talk about our group, actually, and that what we're talking about is a group of friends. There's several of them, actually. We were talking about me and Virginia and Justin, but that particular workshop, there was a young boy named Stephen, who is now Sydney, and she fell over because she saw her soul.
Yes.
And she's come out and said some things, deep pains that she's had, and then I came forward and talked about a sexual addiction and drug addiction as well, and we all just really, really, really healed. And I was just talking with Justin Duncan. Yes, we have a lot of Justins in our life. This morning I said, isn't it amazing all the things that we've accomplished as a group of friends? I mean, we should really be proud of ourselves. I mean, Justin Duncan's been the president of the Honor Society at his college and been a motivational speaker, and has been out there speaking in New Orleans and USF. And this is a kid that could barely talk in front of people. And that was not even 6 years ago. And look at Justin Deschamps and Stillness in the Storm and what that's doing for people. And we were all just sitting in a living room watching movies and, having parties and laughing and being silly, not even just
inviting an old lady to come in.
Inviting an old lady. So, I mean, it's like really profound. And look at Sydney. I mean, Sydney's doing some amazing things. I don't know if you guys noticed. She was
in the White House.
She was just at the White House.
Yeah.
Out magazine. She was just on the cover of Out magazine as one of the 9 most influential trans people in America.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, she's it's pretty powerful to watch the things that involve.
We had a powerful group.
Yeah.
I remember when that last time we met after your mother had died, and the energy in that room was misty, and spirit was all around us. That's a powerful group, and that's when is that when the workshop that you're talking about is Tame Your Dragon? Was that
yes.
That's a great workshop. That was a great workshop. That was the fun workshop. That was the easiest workshop I ever did because we all brought in a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
So it was good. They brought in everything, everybody came into the group to really do the work. And that was because you got to do it. The only way you're going to ever evolve is you got to go down in. You're not ever going to get it outside. I don't care what anybody says. They can argue with me, they want to, but the only place you're going to go it's all inside.
Right.
So what does that look like inside? So I know what it looks like for me, but people ask me all the time, well, what does that look like? And I think that's a little bit different how we see it. Except that inside is the same no matter what. And so when you're talking about looking at the inside, we're talking about these emotional inside reactions, like the ones that say, oh, I don't want that picture to go up. Oh, the one that's really just, there's people with this election that are really terrified right now. And look at that. Somebody asked me the other day at work, they said, I need to ask you a question, Jeremy. How is it that you're always happy and always positive? I said, well, I'm not always happy and positive. And they said, but always the look on your face, you're always smiling and laughing. I said, because what happens is even in the times when I get angry, annoyed, sad, upset, depressed, it doesn't last that long. Right. And they say, well, why doesn't it last very long? Because I always have to remember, if I'm starting to worry about money, I just say, well, more will come. If I start to get angry at something or scared about something, I say, this too shall pass. And I said, so you just have to, that doesn't mean I don't get upset. Yeah, just a few months ago, Justin had to talk me out of quitting my job, actually, because I was in one of those, I wasn't very grounded. And so, isn't that what our friends are for? That's our agreement. That's also love, by the way, to love your friend enough to say, hey, I don't see that. You do what you need to, but I don't see that. At least they spoke up and said something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is love. See, people have an understanding of love that it's got to be this romantic love or everything is going to be hunky-dory and it's perfect all the time. No, it's not. In fact, you want it to be as chaotic a time and somebody say, no, we're in chaos. Let's breathe.
Mm-hmm.
That's love. That's true love is when somebody looks at you and said, you're off.
It doesn't have to fit into this box that we try to put it in where...
Yeah, they're also afraid that if it doesn't match what the movies have told us, what everybody... Yes. I'm telling you, that is such a mind screw. It's not like that. Love is just... I love sitting on the corner of my couch and loving my soul and just being with me. I absolutely adore me. When I get up in the morning, I look at myself, my soul says, good morning.
Right.
And it's like, yes. And then my cat is part of me. Why they asked me is because I've been divorced 14 years, and somebody asked me, they were saddened. One of my students was saddened for me because I might not ever have love. And I kind of looked at her and said, I have love every day from the highest there ever. I don't need a human flesh or a human being to love me. I can love me. And when you can love yourself like that, you wouldn't let anybody talk to yourself, your soul. You're not going to let anybody harm you in any way. And I know that for a fact because the stronger I get, when somebody says something to me, I say, don't talk to me like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very quick to not be nasty. Just don't do that. That hurts my soul. That's what happened to us on Friday night. There's one of my students, I trigger her. And it's obviously I trigger her. And she went after me, and I allowed it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I loved her, and she told me, she said, I knew you loved me enough to allow me. And that's what love is too, is that you're allowing them, but you also have this beautiful boundary that you're not going to let them hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
Because love is not hurting.
Right. And,
That is
let's speak to that for a second, because, to define what unconditional love is, a lot of people think, well, if it's unconditional, then that means you're just passive and you're letting people do whatever they want, including rape and taking advantage of you and all this. And no, that's not what unconditional love is all about. So unconditional love is allowing the recognition of interconnectedness and the energy that can flow through that to be maintained, or try to maintain it at all times, regardless of what somebody does. So what it means is that you're willing to accept somebody for who they are and their process, without also necessarily letting all your boundaries fade away and like, you know what, I'm going to let this person steal from me. I'm going to let them come in my house and take what I belong. No, that's not what love is.
And that's what codependency love is done, and abusive love is done. I mean, the violence of love in the United States is unreal. The domestic violence, and they call it love.
Right.
And I mean, that's not love.
Well, I think it's what you're also talking about is truth too. So, like, does love say that I shouldn't speak truth? And no, it absolutely doesn't say that. Actually, if I love somebody, I'm going to tell them the truth. And so,
but that's another one, is what does truth mean? Now, a lot of people say, I told them my truth. Well, how you deliver that message in truth is a lot of how they heard that truth. Like, I'm tired of you yelling at me, and then that's truth. But how about I tell my students all the time, drop into your heart and say, right now, this is hurting me. And this is about me. And it's no finger pointing, because that's really what truth is. You're not screaming and yelling. That's not truth.
Yeah, and you're going into one of those topics that we talked about before that we wanted to go into the heart.
Yes.
And so the heart of the matter is, the heart is, we're empowered through our heart. So when we're talking about self-love and things that are happening in this world, first of all, to say that you were disempowered, to say that you are weak and you can't do anything, is not love. It's not loving yourself, because who you are as a soul is a very powerful being.
Yes.
You may not be able to lift up a 50-pound jug, but I think you can with energy. With your heart energy, you can attract things and bring and empower yourself, and that's within natural law. Yes, one of the things we've talked about many times, it's not about affecting people's free will. However, you can say, with in the highest and best good in the divine plan, I'd like to see show me the truth, and stay it in your heart. So what she's talking about, I've had that with friends of mine when they start yelling at me. It's like, don't talk to me like that. Mm-hmm. And they stop, because I don't say it. I don't say it like this. Let me tell you, I'm only going to tell you this one. Don't ever talk to me like that again. Different energy. One's disempowered and one is empowered. But we say, don't talk to me like that. And you stay in the heart. Then they're almost stunned, because they're waiting for that poison for you to start going into argument mode. And so you're very empowered at that point in time, and they stop and they listen. And so, and sometimes, they'll start to argue, and they'll go into it, and then you can even say, I'm not interested in arguing. And there's oftentimes where people say, well, we're arguing. I'm like, we are? I don't really see myself as arguing right now, but okay, maybe you see it that way. And so, that's what self-love is, because it helps you ground. Somebody had said, I have to be grounded the other day because I mentioned love. And I said, but love is grounding. Mm-hmm. It is center. It's the center. It's the heart. If it's the heart, then it has to be center. So,
the true core, and we do have a core, and it is part of the heart. The heart opens up everything. Also, when the heart is opened up in that space that you get into, it also stops diseases. It stops everything. I mean, it's amazing what love can heal. Love heals. And when we were talking about my meditation into love, I don't have organs when I go in. When I go deep in myself, I don't have organs. I literally am riding on the stream of energy of my soul. And that's where I'll go into pain. Pain is my best friend, because the more I'm willing to go down into my pain, I can catch it in a different way. And it's not painful. It's a reference point to get even deeper. And see, we've been trained that pain is bad. Now, I'm telling you, people have pain, but I was working with a gentleman that has a drug addiction. He has pain pills. And when he came to me, he was in such pain outside of himself that I could see the energy outside of himself. And so the minute that I started just rubbing the energy field and putting it back down, he was totally in a different place. He said, "Oh my God, have you healed me?" I said, "No, you've got a lot of work. And first of all, we got to get through your addiction." But that pain was outside of him. As soon as I took it back in and grounded it, he had a totally different experience.
Right. And I think that's to kind of talk about the power of being heart-centered. Being heart-centered doesn't mean that you only feel happiness and joy and bliss 100% of the time. That's not it at all. What it means is that you're riding the crest of the wave. And the wave is sometimes going to be really tumultuous, or it's going to be calm and placid like a lake, Mm-hmm. And that's one of the meanings to stillness in the storm. That's what that phrase means, is that you are in the still point. You are in the eye of the storm, but the storm is still around you. You still have to navigate, and it's a proactive approach.
Yes.
So to flip side that, and I want to read a quote from a really popular movie, which is the Star Wars movie, where it talks about the path of the fear is the path of the dark side. So the quote is, "Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. And hate leads to suffering." So within the context of our discussion here, what that means is that when you choose to reject something, when you choose to try to hide yourself from it, and you're not ready to face the truth, you're not willing to be heart-centered, it doesn't mean that thing that caused you to get out of your centered space goes away or disappears. Just because you flip the channel doesn't mean the channel still isn't coming into your TV or it's not broadcasting. Of course not. It's still there. It still exists. Except now your consciousness and your ability to actually transmute that fear into love is dissipated, is out of your hands at that point.
Right. It is. When I was in Miami, the time before, there was a young man that committed suicide. He was 16. And you all relate to this. And I didn't know him. I went in to Miami. I didn't know his family. I didn't know anything. He came to me, and after he died, and asked me to go tell his mother. And what it turned out to be is that Zach was gay. Now this hurts me. And his parents, when I told him, because I knew he was gay, he was trying to tell me he was, but I couldn't tell his parents like that, So what I did is I just said to him, because he was leading me. Now this is a kid I knew nothing about. He led me right to his mother, to where I ended up talking to her personally, and saying, did you ever think that he might be gay? Well, then the mother realized, yes, he was, and she missed it. And because there was such a big expectation there, and a lot of it, I think, was with his dad. He was a Marine, blah, blah, blah. They weren't saying anything to him, but there was all these images there about what they were expecting, what that they thought love was. And I really believe he thought his parents wouldn't love him. Mm-hmm. And jump. Now, to me, this is desperation. He went on a 6th floor garage parking lot and jumped straight into the concrete. Now, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Now we've had another one that did it just last week. This was his friend. So I'm saying these children are not being able to say their truth. Now, why is that these kids today? There's more information about being gay. It's all over there. Why are they still feeling they can't come to that reality for themselves? Guys, you all need to help look at these youths, because that's loving them, because they're not loving themselves. They're feeling like there's something wrong with them. Right.
Yeah. And that's, it's not about putting blame on anybody. However, we live in a reality where we're all helping to co-create the experience we're each having. So while I'm sitting here in my room, talking with you, you're contributing to my experience, and so is everybody.
Right.
So what that means is that as a society, as a civilization of people, each of our contributions to the greater whole determines how the individual experiences reality. And then getting down to the parental figures, how you raise your children, the subtle things that you say, the little things that you do greatly influence a child. I mean, I've been studying a lot of child psychology lately, and there's Alfie Kahn. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Somebody just recently turned me on to him, and he wrote this book called Punished by Rewards. Mm-hmm. And how the things that we've been taught as parents to do, and again, it's not about blaming anything, because as parents, I'm not a parent.
Better. They got trained out the same way.
Exactly. So, but as a child, your parents are literally the gods. They are your role models. They are your world. They are your existence. So, when you withdraw your love, even if it's meant in a way to try to guide them, you know, you're going to punish a child, either that or you're going to try to reward them for certain behavior. Even just saying good boy or good girl is a type of reward, which subconsciously tells the child, well, if I'm not hearing that I'm a good boy, then it must mean the opposite, which means I'm a bad boy. And I have to try to tune my behavior and my identity to garner the support of my parental figures. Mm-hmm. And that programming is incredibly powerful, and it extends to the social level. So even as when we leave the sphere of safety that is our parents at around the ages, you know, from anywhere from 10 to 16, that programming still innate. Now it becomes a social program in society. So now, we're, like you were just saying, Virginia, we're living in this world where arguably the acceptance of homosexuality and transgenderism and all these various variations of sexual identity is probably more accepted than any other time in history.
Than ever that I know.
But that program, that ability to not love yourself because that is the way we've been conditioned. It's called operant conditioning, where we're trying to force people into a mold or a box that tells them, well, this is what you should be, and if you're not this, then you're not acceptable. That is incredibly powerful. And it can eventually lead somebody to feel like they're not good enough to the point where they want to kill themselves. You know, and we all bear a responsibility. We all contribute to the social conditions that allow something like that to happen.
Well, I know that I have met his teachers, and that's why I was over there. I was working with some of the students in one of the middle schools, and that's how it came into me. And then Zach led me right to his mother. I mean, you can't make this shit up. I'm sorry. I didn't know that kid. He came to me from it was Zach, rest in peace. And it was just like he was on me for the rest of I was there for a while, but he was on me. That's what spirit is too. Spirit, this kid needed to be heard. And he took a stranger. How does that work? It doesn't. I don't even equate that anymore. I don't even try to figure it out, because you just can't make this shit up. It happens. Mm-hmm. But if you're listening to that, and this same little kid, this black kid turned right around and did the same thing. And I'm thinking, I knew immediately when they called me, the mother of Zach called, she texted me and she said, we've had another one. Well, it's going to happen that way again if they don't get people in there. And I told Donna, the mother of Zach, I said, you need to start speaking through your heart. Exactly what went on in your house, what was going on, and the secrets that were going on. But she's not willing to look at the secrets because she's worked with me a couple of times. And when you invite me into somebody's house, I know the secrets. They're the easiest ones to find, because that's the one they're holding on energy on. You know that, Jeremy, because people said, I'm not going to tell you. Well, you don't have to tell me. I know where you are because you're holding all the energy to that secret. So I've already found the secret. And we have to realize everybody thinks we're just really cool in the United States. We can do this, but these kids are still needing help. They need people my message, I was there at Yom Kippur this last time, and I felt the atonement prayers. Because in Miami, they have a very strong Jewish group. I felt it, and I thought, oh, my God. And that spirit literally said, when you go to talk to these kids, because I was working with the volleyball coach and the volleyball girls, the junior high school girls. And spirit literally said, you're not there to teach them volleyball, because I did work with volleyball. It's there, you're telling them how precious they are and how precious they are to me. Now, if children would understand, if my mother had looked at me and said, you're precious, you have a sacredness in you, you have you have so much inside, I wouldn't have made a lot of decisions that I made, I can tell you right now. But she couldn't say that because she didn't feel that. Her mother didn't feel it. I saw, when I had my near-death experience, I saw the lineage of all the women. all the way down to my great 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 grandmother, and we've passed that on to the next lineage, to the next, and they just twisted each lineage. And I'm seeing that more and more with kids and other people that I work with. We are cleaning out our lineages because that's old stuff that we've been holding on for generations, really eons. And it's time we all start really talking the truth. Stop playing games and pointing fingers. Let's look at the three fingers pointing inside, and let's start clearing ourselves. And it clears Mother Earth. She's alive. She's a spirit. She's alive. Yeah, when I try to tell people you're alive inside, spirit is alive. I remember when I laid down on the ground and she laid underneath me. And that's exactly what it felt like. And she just let me lay back. You know, when you let somebody rest on you, she just let me rest, and our spinal cords lined up, and she just took me out in the universe. She said, I'm alive. All I want you all to do is recognize that I'm alive and honor that life, period. And when you've had that kind of experience that I've had, I just see it from such a different place. I'm very blessed. I'm very grateful to have my heart knocked open, you know, with the heart attack, and because I literally attacked my heart. I was so guilty. So it's all an opportunity for us. And I think we're on the cutting edge of that. I think that's what it's always been. I know we're on the cutting edge. I've been doing it for 19 years, this practice. And I'm seeing this practice becoming bigger and better with other people, because it's not psychology. It's true honesty within the self. That's it.
Yeah.
Justin, you wanted to read something out of your latest blog, a quote at the end of it. I can't remember that.
Yeah. Well, it has to do with transmutation. So to preamble this and to dovetail into the discussion we were just having about heart openness, you know, when you allow yourself to be open to something and receptive, that's what allows your conscious mind to reorganize it. So when you're not in that space, this is the catalyst that creates trauma. So trauma is an experience that we feel that is so intense, or that's something that we reject, that we try to withdraw our consciousness out of what we're experiencing. And what that means is that our consciousness can't organize it and make it coherent. And it's all about establishing coherence. It's all about making things, you know, beautiful. And, you know, when you see something that's pretty and beautiful, it's usually because it's coherently organized. So when you allow yourself to be open and feel that openness, you're allowing your consciousness to be open and receptive to that full truth. And that's really the power of transmutation, I think. You know, if we think about healing is also a type of transmutation. If you're in a state of disease, whether mental, physical, or spiritual, it's because something's not working right. It's all jumbled up and, you know, knotted up, and, you know, you can't really walk straight, or whatever the situation is. But when you allow yourself to be open to receive what's happening, then you can actually use the powers that you've been given, the powers that you have innately, to take back control and gain self-mastery. So to kind of ground this, you know, if you're somebody who's you eat just because you just like the taste of food, and, you know, you're not really thinking about the bigger picture of what that may do to your body or how that affects your health. You're literally just eating at that surface level, and you're kind of just like, well, you know, just because I eat, you know, I don't even know, candy bars every day, that doesn't have any effect on my health. But of course it really does. The truth can't be totally obliterated. You can mask it over a little bit, but the truth's still there. But when you finally face the reality, when you actually open your heart up to the full truth, now you can realize, well, wait a minute. These 6 candy bars I've been having every day, this is the reason why I get a migraine every day at 12 o'clock. This is the reason why I come back from lunch and I can barely keep my head up at my desk because I'm falling asleep because I have insulin shock. You know, this is the reason why, you know, I'm gaining a ton of weight. And so this disease, this disorder, this darkness that is created by lack of awareness can start to be transmuted. And so it's this idea of transmutation, this idea of healing and reconciliation, which is also what forgiveness is all about, restoring balance and coherence. And this quote that I'm going to read is from the Emerald Tablets, which is I don't know what it is about the Emerald Tablets, but anytime I read it or listen to it, I can just feel it like coursing through me, and there's so much wisdom in this. So this is a passage from the Secret of Secrets section of the Emerald Tablets, and this is Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and he's talking about what our purpose here is as individuals, and what light and dark are. So here we go. It says, "First, I shall speak of the fetters of darkness, which bind ye in chains to the sphere of the earth. Darkness and light are both of one nature, different only in seeming. For each arose from the source of all. Darkness is disorder, light is order. Darkness transmuted is light of the light. This, my children, is your purpose in being. Transmutation of darkness to light."
And that's the truth.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically what he's saying there is that the things about everything that you don't know, everything that you choose to ignore and think, well, I don't have to learn about this, or I don't have to face this about myself, or I can just blindly believe what this person told me, this politician, this news source, this magazine, this guru, my pastor, my boss, whoever this person is, that there's so many blind truths happening in this world. It's uncanny. You're literally putting up barriers that block your light from opening and going into these areas so that you can be empowered and transmute them. So it's all about taking your light, which that's what consciousness is. Your consciousness is light, awareness, and it's allowing your awareness to cast itself into the unknown of your beingness and the unknown of your soul, so that you can start to gain mastery and control of your life. So instead of feeling like life is this never-ending stream of chaos where, you wake up one day and you're like, man, I can never catch a break. Well, it's because you're not in balance, you're not in order, you're not using your powers of consciousness to transmute that light. And this is a huge topic, but that's one meaning.
But that's exactly what people get into. That's exactly what happened to my life. I was running so fast I couldn't catch up with myself, but I was doing everything that the society said to do. I was raising children. I had a great job. I was teaching, and I was highly revered in my teaching, and I was running by ego, literally, just to get rewards, accolades and things that I should, I'm so different than where I was back then. I look back and I don't even know how I even focused. Mm-hmm. But I did a really good job at focusing. But when I had the heart attack, it made me just literally stop. And when I got quiet, I realized how crazy I really was inside. And you're crazy. When you got all that going on, it's a crazy world in there. And the more I started looking at why was I doing things, I was doing a lot of things in obligation out of fear people wouldn't like me. So I'd sign up. And that's when I started doing my power of yes. Now, I'm not talking about the power of yes of saying yes to somebody else. I'm talking about the power of saying yes to yourself.
Yeah.
How many of us say yes to everybody else, but we don't say yes to ourselves? So I spent a whole presentation, for many years I did the power of yes presentation, or stop the merry-go-round on one arm. And that was all directly given to me by my higher self, because I got still enough to listen to it. And it was so wise, and it was so loving, and it was so kind to me. It didn't have a mean bone in its body. It's what I had suppressed or depressed, because I had 2 emotional breakdowns, one at 16 and one at 21. Mm-hmm. And but what's so funny, when I started really feeling everything, I realized my craziness or my emotional breakdown, it feels just like when I went into meditation. Mm. It's an incredible time to be with yourself.
So I was just thinking about the things that you guys were saying, and one of them is that Justin was talking about, transmutation from darkness into light. And it's interesting. Then everybody's out there looking for a guru, even if they say they're not looking for a guru, they make other people their gurus. I know people make Justin their guru. People have made me their guru. People have made you their guru, Jenny. And we always say, don't make me your guru. Justin, I think that's the end of his blog, and Stillness in the Storm. And so The guru, I researched this a long time ago, means one who's transmuted themselves from darkness into light. So it has nothing to do with you standing there in worship. I actually heard there was a man that was the long story. I was supposed to be a keynote speaker of a expo, and the expo planner decided not to because there was a man that came forward, and he's friends with what's his name, Tony Robbins, and all that other kind of stuff. And hearing about him, he has this huge following, all that other kind of stuff. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. And so, I'm usually like, whatever needs to happen, happen. Then I found out that this man, literally, there's a guru that lives here in the Clearwater area, and he sleeps at her feet. Literally, this motivational speaker that flies around the country. And I just thought to myself, if anybody tried to sleep at Virginia's feet, she'd probably kick him.
Get out.
And so I thought to myself, this is worship of another people. And some people say, well, it's an honoring of another person.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. Now, what some of the Buddhists do is they work together. And, like the Dalai Lama has people that work and work with him. There are other priests and stuff, but they don't fall at his feet. Uh-uh. And so, but where I was going with this is that I've been taking this kind of workshop over the phone with a gentleman named Raymond Moody, and he's talking about the Greek philosophers. And probably the most profound thing he said to me today is he was talking about the early philosophers prior to Plato and Socrates, how building into Socrates and Plato. And he basically said how they used to discover things is they would experiment. And it just hit me so hard because I thought to myself, I've been, for the last year, my presentation has been, get out there and play, screw up, figure it out. It's gonna, if you're playing, it's not really screwing up. You're not failing. You can't possibly fail because you're living. And so there's no difference between that and the philosophers. They were out there, they were observing things. Sometimes they were doing it inside. Sometimes they were doing it in the three-dimensional world. And the truth is that if you want to talk about love and saying yes to yourself, for those of you that are watching, get out there and live and just shut up. Your mind is trying to talk you out of it before you ever start. And I can tell you there's been so many things that I've done that my mind told me I couldn't do. I just had to say yes to a project because my mind started to say I couldn't do it. Even though I've wrote a book, the project is writing a book for somebody. And so, I know Justin's gone through that. I know Virginia's gone through that. And so, if you want to be the stillness in the storm, you have to sit in the eye of your fear. Mm-hmm. And you have to look at it head on. If you're unwilling to do that, then you're going to be crippled. It's like Justin was talking about when he talked about people discovering him being in the closet. I remember that feeling when I was in the closet. And so now I go on a radio show and I wear a shirt that says less judgment, more acceptance. I don't really care. And so and then there was a time when I had to wear if I was wearing a brown belt, I had to wear brown shoes and earrings to match the belt buckle. How ridiculous is that? And so, and not necessarily a judgment, but if that works for you, then that's fine. But what it was for me is I was afraid of people's judgment. You
were doing it out of fear.
And out of fear. So if that really makes you, like my friend Damien, he loves shopping. It makes him feel relaxed. It's his meditation. If that's fine, if that works for him. And so many other people. So it's not about you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. Don't listen to us. Follow your soul. Follow what works for you.
But that's what people don't understand, how to follow their soul.
Yeah.
They don't understand how to listen to that that small, that voice is so small at the very beginning, you don't even really recognize it. You hear the other voice. And I had a client the other day who said, there's a war going on inside of me. And she made an observation because she was being the ultimate observer. She said, there's a part of me that is really mad and there's a part of me that's really happy, and they fight all the time. And I said, well, you now recognize that you are split. There's two beings in there and they're fighting. That's why I used to say, when you stop the war inside, you will stop the war on the outside. It's really very, because the more you work with yourself, the more this all clears out outside anyway. You'll draw in the right and perfect people. And that's what this is going on, is we've got books that are telling people that it's there, but we don't have anybody that's showing them how to get there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I was just looking at it. We've been going for about an hour and 15 minutes. I thought we've been talking, and I didn't realize it until I looked down. I was like, wow. So,
We're in the flow, yeah.
Definitely in the flow. Definitely in the flow. Any last things you would like to say before we
Love yourself.
love yourself? Yeah.
Love yourself.
Yep. Accept yourself. And actually, I wanted to read one last thing. I was inspired, and I wrote this little meme image that I think would be a good thing to kind of define what fear is in relation to transmutation. So here it goes. It says, fear is in the eye of the beholder. What we fear is only a symbol or catalyst relative to each individual. Through the light of awareness, the illusions of fear can be dispelled, but only if loved, not avoided. Only by rejecting a thing can the fear it might invoke be maintained. Thus, your light can dispel the darkness that is lack of awareness. So cast your light in all the dark places, and in doing so, find the wisdom that hides beneath the veils of your fear.
Yeah, absolutely. When I got into my fear and accepted my fear, then anybody that came around me, their beast would, and I tell you, the best movie to go see is Beauty and the Beast. You got to learn to dance with your beast. And it will be a prince or a princess, because the minute you learn to work with it, it becomes a friend. No longer your enemy. And I know that because I've done it. I was the worst fear. I was scared of everything. And now I look back at all the things I've done. It's pretty amazing. And it's because I faced my own fear.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm just going to say self-love as well. I mean, face your stuff.
Yeah.
You get afraid. That's probably, if what you're afraid of is probably what you should go towards.
Amen. That's the first thing you need to dig into. So, yeah.
Well, much love to everybody. Thanks for watching us. And I'll have this up for you guys here shortly. So, and have a happy Thanksgiving and all that wonderful end of the year stuff. So.
We should have talked about Thanksgiving too, but it's all good.
Well, just be grateful.
Yes, absolutely.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right. Love everybody. Take care.